January 1990, Russia, Britain, United States, France, and Italy negotiated a peace treaty that would end World War I. Germany had no involvement with this treaty. The treaty was known as the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles has 15 parts and 440 articles. The treaty will put Germany at fault for the war. This treaty will have Germany pay reparations to France. It will also change Germany's boundaries. Germany signed under protest. The treaty was not finished until January 21st, 1920. After the Treaty of Versailles, later on that year, a small political party would come into play. The party was the German Workers' Party, which was founded by Anton Drexel, a toolmaker, and Dietrich Eckart, a journalist. The party promoted German nationalism, anti-Semitism, and hated the Treaty of Versailles because it was unfair to Germany. Hitler became the 7th member. Their first public meeting was held on February 24th, 1920. There, Hitler came up with a 25 points program. The name changed to National Socialist German Workers' Party, April 1920. The economic crisis of 1923 began when Germany missed a payment to France for reparations. The Weimar Republic nearly collapsed. It was a general flood of paper money coming in, and a strike was happening, which meant there were no goods to be made, and it caused hyperinflation. Prices went out of control. A loaf of bread would usually cost 250 marks in January 1923, but had risen 200,000 million marks in November 1923. German currency became worthless. In November 1923, Hitler and his followers had made a plan to take over the Bavarian state government. On November 8, 1923, Hitler and 600 stormtroopers burst into the meeting that Carl and Lewis were holding at a local beer hall. On November 9th, Hitler tried to make his attack, but due to poor planning and misjudgment, Carl had called up in police and army reinforcement. There was a short scuffle and the police killed only 16 Nazis. Hitler fled but was arrested 2 days later.
After the unsuccessful beer hall putsch and Nazi Party leader Hitler was sentenced to 5 years in prison, the Nazi Party gained even more resentment towards Germany's democratic government, leftist politics, and Jews. Being that Hitler and the Nazis believed that the Jews were responsible for most of their political failures, losses of events, and the economic crisis, they now became Hitler's worst enemy. Also, Hitler's popularity increased during his trial as his defense speeches were printed in the newspapers. After being sent to Landsberg jail, Hitler still managed to maintain communication with his fellow Nazi members and supporters. He spent his time dictating his autobiography Mein Kampf and working on his oratorical skills. 9 months into his prison sentence, supporters of the Nazi Party raised political pressure on the government, which led to Hitler's release, and the Nazi Party was formed into a mass movement called the Reichstag. The purpose of the Dawes Plan was to take Weimar Germany out of its state of monetary inflation that was increasing very fast and to make Weimar's economy stable again. The Dawes Plan was named after Charles Dawes, head of the Weimar Republic Committee. The Treaty of Versailles had imposed huge reparation payments on Weimar Germany to pay for the damage caused by World War I. Soon after, it was realized that Weimar Germany just couldn't pay off the installments required by Versailles. Germany's most productive industrial area, Ruhr, was occupied with French and Belgian troops. This ended the agreement with the Treaty of Versailles in 1923. And due to Weimar Germany's economic crisis, workers went on strike. The US, UK, Italy, Belgium, and France were all represented on the Dawes Committee. Because each nation forwarded 2 experts in finance, Weimar Germany could make full payments on debt.
Since Germany's economy was thriving from the effects of the Dawes Plan, they too received a crippling blow from the stock market crash of 1929. Germany's dependency on foreign powers caused its economy to plummet back into its post-World War I state. German marks were once again worth nothing. While Germany's economy was falling apart, so was its government. Instead of working together, political party members tried to push their own agendas, causing disunity in legislation. A new chancellor was appointed, but he faced a large amount of opposition. He eventually gave in to the government's disorganization and asked President Hindenburg to invoke Article 49 and call for Hitler saw the call for new elections as an opportunity to initiate his Nazi takeover. In 1930, Hitler and the Nazi Party launched a widespread campaign. Hitler traveled Germany giving many speeches. His speeches filled the audience with much-needed encouragement and hope in a time of struggle. Hitler comprised his speeches with catchy slogans and ill-detailed promises of jobs, prosperity, and military expansion. When elections were held on September 14, 1930, the Nazi Party received over 18% of the vote and won 107 seats in the Reichstag. This was a huge victory for the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party members in the Reichstag furthered the separation within Germany's government. They often argued with other party members in disrupted proceedings. With the Reichstag being unable to come to an agreement and make decisions, the people remained in a state of vulnerability. Since their government was unable to produce a working plan, many Germans looked to Hitler because of his promises of a better future. In 1932, when elections were held, Hitler ran against President Hindenburg. Although he lost both the regular elections and runoff elections, Hitler was still seen as an important figure in German politics. He had a strong influence on high-ranking officials like President Hindenburg and was called into various meetings to appoint Germany a new chancellor. Hitler began working with an army officer by the name of Kurt von Schleicher. Together they got rid of Germany's cabinet members and replaced them with men of their liking. With the intention of destroying Germany's current government, they appointed a man by the name of Papen as chancellor. Papen later resigned because of his inability to form a working coalition amongst his cabinet. After Papen resigned, Schleicher was appointed as chancellor, but he too was unable to form a working coalition. After being denied the dissolution of the Reichstag twice by Hindenburg, Schleicher resigned. Hitler was then appointed chancellor after promising to work with other government officials to form an effective cabinet. Soon after Hitler became chancellor, with his permission, a plan was made to burn down the Reichstag building. Fortunately for Hitler and his associates, there was a deranged communist who also wanted to burn down the building. On February 27th, Mannerist Vanderloob burned down the Reichstag building. He took off his shirt and set it on fire, using it as a torch to set the building ablaze. Sometime during the burning of the building, the arsonist was assisted by stormtroopers. Hitler blamed the burning of the building on Lube and effectively used it as propaganda for a stricter government hold on expression. After the burning of the building, Hitler continued to work on destroying the democracy in Germany. His final blow to the democratic structure was the Enabling Act. The act would essentially give Hitler the power of the Reichstag, thus allowing him to enact any laws he wished without approval of other party members. To pass the act, he needed 2/3 of the vote. Hitler promised the Reichstag members he would use the act only for necessary measures, and that the act would help him fulfill his promises of prosperity and peace in Germany. On March 23rd, the Enabling Act was passed, ending democracy in Germany and making Hitler dictator. A week after passing the Enabling Act, the Nazis organized a boycott of Jewish shops. On April 1st, 1933, Joseph Goebbels gave a speech filled with anti-Semitism while stormtroopers stood in front of Jewish businesses holding anti-Semitic signs encouraging citizens to shop only at German stores. The boycott was the beginning of the anti-Semitic acts of the Nazis. Less than a week after the boycott, the government began to slowly take away the rights of Jews, beginning with their ability to work in certain establishments.
After Hitler had become Chancellor of Germany, he appointed Hermann Göring as Minister of the Interior for the state of Prussia. This title allowed for Göring to have control over the German police. As one of his first acts, Göring prohibited the German police from interfering with any of the Nazi brown shirts, regardless of what actions or crimes they were committing. This resulted in the Nazis being above the law. They could do as they pleased without worry of repercussion from law enforcement. Göring then swore in 50,000 Nazi stormtroopers into the Berlin Police Department. Now, they actually had the power to arrest German citizens. Nazi stormtroopers would arrest German citizens to put them in the so-called protective custody, or simply because they felt like it. The normal German prisons began to overflow with inmates, which caused for the Nazis to open large outside prison camps, which was Germany's first step towards concentration camps. On April 26, 1993, Göring issued a decree which led to the creation of the Geheime Staatspolizei, or Gestapo for short. Göring used the Gestapo to put an end to any opposition to Hitler's rule. Göring hoped that this would be enough to remain in Hitler's favor and in control of the Gestapo. However, Heinrich Himmler also wanted control of the Gestapo forces. This caused conflict between the men for almost a year before Göring conceded control of the Gestapo to Himmler. A few years later, Himmler became chief of the German police and his right-hand man, Reinhard Heydrich, was in charge of intelligence. No one was safe from the Gestapo's spying. On February 10, 1936, the Gestapo law was passed. This law allowed for the Gestapo to be above the law and to even become a law of its own. This was very bad for the German people. Citizens could be arrested, interrogated, and incarcerated without any real cause. Compounding on that law, in 1938, a legal policy was proclaimed by Hitler which stated, "All means, even if they are not in conformity with existing laws and precedences, are legal if they subserve the will of the Führer." Although the members of the Gestapo were not large in numbers, most of the fear stemmed from many people not knowing who was a member and who wasn't. The German people were ruled by fear. Those who were arrested or found to speak negatively about the German government were harshly interrogated, sent to prison, or killed. The idea of eliminating any non-German ideals continued to spread throughout Germany. On May 10, 1933, German university students, along with Nazi brown shirts, gathered in Berlin to burn books that they believed opposed to German ideals. During the book burning, Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Propaganda, gave a speech.
Das Zeitalter eines überspitzten jüdischen Intellektualismus ist nun zu Ende. Und der Durchbruch der deutschen Revolution hat auf dem deutschen Weg wieder die Gasse freigemacht. Und der kommende deutsche Mensch wird nicht nur ein Mensch des Buches, sondern auch ein Mensch des Charakters.
The book burning was such an important event because it allowed for Hitler to influence the youth, which will help to stop future opposition. This idea was furthered with the replacement of the traditional German education and replaced with Nazi policies and ideals. Their motto was, "The supreme task of the schools is the education of youth for the service of Volk and state and the National Socialist spirit." Now that Hitler's ideals were spreading throughout Germany, Hitler's last hurdle lied within the German government. Hitler needed the support of the German General Staff, which would give him control over the German army, which could, at this point in time, put an end to his rise to total power. However, conflicts within his own ranks began to pose a problem for Hitler. Ernest Röhm, a decorated World War I veteran and leader of the SA forces who were prone to violent tendencies, were essentially being benched. This, however, did not stop the SA forces. They continued to cause problems which threatened Hitler's political survival and the future of Nazi Germany. When Hitler confronted Röhm about his forces, Röhm pretended as if he agreed with Hitler, was planning a second revolution. On June 30th, 1934, Hitler received news that the SA had been making public demonstrations which greatly angered Hitler. Hitler made the decision to put an end to the opposition. Ernest Röhm was arrested along with other members of the SA who were there with him. Röhm was later executed in his cell at the prison. That Saturday morning, Hitler ordered Göring and the SS to purge the streets of any SA members. SS execution squads, along with the Gestapo and Göring's private police, went through the streets of Germany, hunting down SA leaders and everyone else on the prepared enemies list. This purging of the SA members became known as the Night of Long Knives. After the Night of Long Knives, Hitler almost had complete control of Germany. The only obstacle that was in his way was President Hindenburg, who was on his deathbed. Hitler could not declare himself to be Supreme Führer as long as Hindenburg remained alive. There was also the matter of who was to succeed Hindenburg after his death. However, this was not a cause for concern for Hitler. Hitler knew that he was the true ruler of Germany and took the necessary measures to ensure that everyone knew it. On August 2nd, 1934, President Hindenburg died, and the Reich government enacted a law that declared Hitler to be Supreme Führer in the event of Hindenburg's death, that was dated a day prior. Even though such an act was illegal, no one opposed the decree. On August 20th, 1934, mandatory loyalty oaths for all public officials in Germany were introduced, and Hitler had finally achieved total power in Germany.